mean, I guess that's true. We could have taken Forewarned.
Oh,
Hello.
the purple queen returns.
Wait, where's my camera? There we go.
Oh, now you're
Good job. You did it.
We did something.
Yeah.
I mean, it took us the same length of time to play this scenario as it did the first three.
Yeah.
And we lost
No
this
doubt.
one.
I'm like, yeah, they're doing a speed run, so I should be on in like 30 minutes. And then it's like, wait.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah, basically till we hit the Great Hall, everything was working just fine.
Mhm,
But yeah, it turns out there's a lot of moving parts you got to get in place for this scenario to work properly. And I feel like adding the just one more natty that you need to win in two-player versus like, Scott, you've taken dubs through this scenario or this campaign at least a couple times, right? Like just adding that even one more is a big difference.
Well, I was telling Sean too that I think before the show, the first time I took the solo Ursula deck through this campaign, I beat this scenario with 2 Doom on the second agenda. Like, it was like 9 turns and this scenario was done. So I was like, oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. But Nihilism hit me twice. That was a big oof.
I remember when Jacqueline came out and everyone was like, Nihilism is that weakness is easy.
You know what? It is if you play. Well, if I were a smart player, I would have gotten rid of Nihilism on that turn that I died from it before I did anything.
No,
because I had the action to do it, but yeah.
Get rid of a Nihilism like immediately, because you never know when it's going to destroy you.
Yep.
Just like in real life.
Yeah.
Well, the answer to that question is always eventually.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, look at MJ showing up actually like in real people clothes and like with mood lighting. You look way better than either of us schlubs do.
I got dressed up for this. Well, this isn't mood lighting. This is just my normal strip lighting that I can adjust.
This is just how I exist.
Well, I can't actually right now because it's too far away. But yeah, this is just how I live.
You could do far worse. Well, hi. How's it going?
Good. I just watched a game of Arkham with some dudes who thought they could speedrun it.
Do you get like a sick sense of pleasure from watching people who are overconfident smeared?
I honestly I prefer to watch people win. To be honest. But it is kind of funny. It's like either way, it's a victory for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You either win and you have fun, or you lose, and I'm like, good.
And then MJ wins.
Get wrecked. No, that's not true. Yeah, like as long as you had fun, I think it's fine.
So Scott, I think ultimately, because we are now speedrunners, we are Arkham speedrunners by definition. What all this means is that we gotta take 2.
Oh yeah,
you got to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit more intention in Kadath, but
I feel like when you're speedrunning, you almost have a higher likelihood of failing because you're not paying as close attention. You're not taking as much time to like analyze every decision. You're just going, and that's like that's a real skill, and B, it does make it harder. Like I feel like it notches the difficulty up like almost a whole difficulty level.
Well, okay, so
yeah, I mean, so if I had thought through my turn, right? Like if I had gotten rid of Nihilism first, I may have still been in the game. Who knows how that would have played out, right?
More time to think about it, you might have done that, or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
So if we're gonna talk like philosophically,
the designer of Arkham is Psylocke from X-Men. That's like one of the best compliments I've ever received.
Psylocke and Storm were my first waifu, so I completely agree.
Just gonna Google Psylocke here.
Yep,
you don't know Psylocke?
Enjoy.
Okay, so
wow.
In the video
game,
do
you like thighs?
Like a Super Nintendo. Yeah, I was gonna say in the Super Nintendo game, she's like 80% legs, and she just kicks you, and it's like across the screen, and you're like, oh my god.
Scott, Psylocke is a psychic whose consciousness was transferred into the mind of a ninja assassin He then became an X-Man.
Right. Welcome to comic books.
An X-person.
Anytime I hear someone talking about Cable's backstory, my eyes glaze over, and I just forget everything that was happening. It's like
which backstory? Cable's got like 10 of them.
The I don't know, the main one.
The one where he's just Scott and Jean's Cyclops and Jean's kid from the future, from a dystopian future.
From a dystopian future, and he went back in time to, blah 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 blah.
That is the main one.
Josh says Cable has one.
Okay, look, that's the backstory, but like the circumstances of why he came forward in time changes in literally every story he's in.
It's true.
Here, look, there's a plague. This time I have a baby. Like, it's all over the place.
This entire conversation is completely over my head.
And a complete tangent.
Yeah. Cable's an X-Men, I assume.
So the first question I had, and maybe you guys will both know this better than I will, is like talking about speedrunning Arkham as a game. Is it possible to do it like on an actual moving clock, or is it more useful to think about like how many turns do you take to get through it? Like what does that actually mean?
I would say so. I think both are like, how speedrunning, there's always tons and tons of categories, right?
Yeah, like any percent or 100% or
no glitches, any percent with glitches, whatever. I would say that those would be like two different categories. Like the former is definitely the more intense. Like you actually have to, you're on like an actual clock. Your turns have to be fast in real time. You can't take time to make decisions. You have to know everything that the scenario is doing, and you also have to know exactly how to set it up really fast. Like that to me is like, I don't know. I don't want to say true speedrunning because both are valid, but like that to me, I think captures the essence of like video game speedrunning.
Well, therein lies the difficulty, though, is because even when we play at a normal pace, we make play mistakes all the time. Like people will be kind enough
to
comment on our YouTube channels.
It's tougher with a board game because it's like the game's not playing, the game's not running it for you.
The game's not an arbiter of the rules.
Yeah. So you have to also know the game so well that you don't make any mistakes.
I'll let you know when we get there.
Yeah,
which I think is a lot easier solo. Like that is... And
the less complicated the game state, the easier it's going to be. So...
And it's interesting, too, that you bring that up, Sean, because like there was... For a while there was the League of Extraordinary Investigators I was involved with, where we kind of tried to make a competitive version of Arkham as far as who does the best, and we were like, at first we were tracking like rounds and like how many rounds it took you, and you actually had to stream it so people could watch it, and you'd have someone mark it to like double check to make sure you didn't make mistakes. And then we had like penalties to mistakes, like based on like victory points and all. It was very complicated. Anyways,
it's very complicated.
Yeah, it was kind of neat, but it was that turn-based thing, right? It was based on how many actions it took you to get through the game. Whereas Philion has done speed runs where it's a timer, right? And Iron Man is kind of like that too, where it's like
it is.
I mean,
Iron Man is a speed run.
Yeah, it is, right? Like, and it's
long scale.
And like you said, like the setup thing, like we had the scenarios pre-built. We had decks, like like Ian had spreadsheets for his deck on how to upgrade based on how much XP, and like because he had adaptable too, like that kind of stuff. I think I personally enjoy the time one more, but yeah. So
well, I feel like that's more exciting just to play. Like I feel like probably the action-based one is more pure from a mechanical standpoint, because then you can look back and be like, all right, you can analyze each individual turn or action and see what choices got made and how efficient potentially that was in the overall game. But yeah, like having a timer is definitely the more exciting way.
I agree. Yeah.
It's interesting too to think, like, so years ago I used to do, well, a little bit. I wasn't great at it. Speed cubing, like Rubik's Cube.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there's two types of events. I mean, there's different sizes of Rubik's Cube and all that stuff. But there is speed, right? Like solve it as fast as you can. And then there's also least move competitions where you get a cube and it's like, how many moves do you need, right? And people are doing like 32 twists and solving
that's exactly the same. Yeah. It's like 2 different categories. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you tie on moves, then it's who solved it faster.
Right.
Like if you both took 32, then you took 45 minutes and I took 48 minutes. Then
I like that.
I think one thing that has come up, and like I don't think in a necessarily negative way, but when people started talking about speedrunning Arkham, and I know Filey, when this came up, because he did one run last year at the Horrors Without Borders, and again this year, if I remember correctly, is some people suggesting that it's against the spirit of the game to speedrun it, in that Arkham is meant to be like an RPG, it's meant to be a story-based game. And speedrunning basically, like, like I did in this one, I'm not sure if you were watching then, but I'm like, flip it over, it's like blah, 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 story text, don't care, mechanical, right? I strongly disagree with that. Only because I think there's a lot of ways to play Arkham. And Maxine, you've been a big proponent of, like, play Arkham the way it makes, the way you see it as fun, right? Like,
play
you want a taboo or not?
Like when people say like, oh, it was never intended to be played, like, no. Arkham was intended to be played, period.
Yeah.
That's it. You can play it however you want. The rules that we present to you are like our suggested, or like not even suggested. It's just like, this is what we designed. Have fun.
Right.
That's how I feel.
There are layers to it. Like, if you were going to speedrun the campaign the first time you played it, I'm going to be like,
you're probably going to get a bad experience if that's the first time you ever play. And likewise, if the first time you ever play is on expert, you're probably going to have a bad time.
You're going to have a bad time.
yeah, exactly. But like, or, if the first time you ever play, you're playing with someone who's like, hey, I play with a house rule where I take out the auto fail and I add 3 + 1s. It's like, yeah, you could play it that way. It's probably going to be a bit easy. Like, you might not have as much fun. It's not going to be as tense. But like, that's perfectly valid. Every possible variant of this game that you could come up with is a perfectly valid way to play, in my opinion. And that's coming from me. So
that's official. And that might as well be an FAQ.
I mean, you know me, I play a lot of video games. I play a lot of RPGs. I play like Guild Wars and Genshin Impact, and I used to play Final Fantasy 11 and 14 and shit. And like, the amount of people who do that same exact sort of self-gatekeeping in those communities is overwhelming, where it's like, oh, this is the way the game is meant to be played or whatever. And it's like, nah. The game is meant to be played however you have fun playing it. And if that means logging in and doing nothing but fishing for 18 hours, that's fine. If that's what you want to do. You know what I mean?
MJ, I told you that about that Saturday night in confidence. I just...
No, like, when I used to play Guild Wars, like, one of my favorite things to do is to just explore. And I would get no experience doing it. I would unlock no achievements. I would just run around and like listen to dialogue and like explore the world. And that to me was that's how I wanted to play.
The MMOs that encourage exploration are the best. Like, I was so sad that WildStar kind of died when it did, because they actually made that like a subclass was Explorer, and I'm like, yes, finally someone who understands why I liked WoW Classic so much, because it didn't hold your hand and give you a way marker for every quest you had. You like had to like go out into the world and fucking figure it out most of the time.
You should play Genshin.
Genshin? Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, you might not like it as much because it's very anime, but
I mean, I have a taste for anime.
Play it. It's good.
I'll add it to
the... But yeah, but it's like,
so,
it's,
Oh, go ahead, Maxie.
No, that's it.
Okay. One thing too, like, I think when it comes to speedrunning games, and I think that people who do speedrunning tend to both enjoy and like both love and hate the game that they're speedrunning. Because I don't think you can speedrun a game that you actually hate.
No, I don't think.
Right,
Well,
like-
you could. You would just probably find the experience to be miserable.
Right.
But like, I think what you're getting at is something I've experienced with a lot of games, not just in speedrunning, but in general. Like, you play a game enough times, and if you're speedrunning, you've played it a lot, right?
Mhm.
You eventually learn like so much about the game. You kind of get the behind the curtain experience
Mhm.
where you're like, I almost know too much about this game now. You know what I mean?
A surprise cat
Like-
guest.
Oh yeah. Oh, she looks mad. Come here, girl. Come here. Come here. Yes.
Attacks you.
She likes to speed run falling asleep. Yes. You fall asleep.
I
Right?
still haven't mastered that one.
So
Finally, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I think like kind of what you're getting at is this idea that like I don't know, like with if you're playing the same game over and over and over and over again, you're eventually gonna run into periods where you're just like, this is this is not as fun as when I'm playing it for fun. Because you're not playing it for fun at that point, you're playing it for like bragging rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like tonight.
Like tonight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Super fun.
we didn't really fucking gain any bragging rights.
Yeah.
No,
on this
you
particular
kind
run.
Right, actually.
But yeah.
There was a funny quote earlier today because I was talking to Phileon about how we were going to have this conversation. And he said, speedrunners all hate the game they play. You can tell because if they liked it, they'd actually spend more time playing it rather than just trying to get it done quick.
Well,
I don't know about that.
It was,
Because
I think, tongue in cheek, but
Yeah, tongue in cheek. I think you only speedrun a game. I think you only truly speedrun a game if you've already beaten it like a bunch of times, right?
yeah.
Like, my first experience speedrunning was with Super Metroid. And I could not, because you get the alternate ending if you beat it in under 3 hours, and which blew my mind when I was a kid. And I did not get that alternate ending until I had beaten the game like, I don't know, some obscene number, like 30 times or something when I was a kid.
that is insane.
Yeah. So I don't know, by that point I like memorized everything and like, you know, I knew the game in and out. So
And that is ultimately speedrunning, is that it's just like mastery of a very specific skill set of events within the game, right?
yeah,
Depending
you're
on
not
the game.
trying to enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
You're trying to be like you're trying to master it. Yeah.
You're trying to put the game in a can crusher and see how far you can get the lever down.
I mean, it's actually not that dissimilar from tournament play in some ways, in that it's a test of skill. You're not playing it around the dinner table with your friends. You're playing it to win.
Mm-hmm.
You're just doing it against the same deck every time.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of where it I've seen people bump up against it in the community when it's brought up is and I mean these people are entitled to their opinion, absolutely. Like if they want to play the RPG way and the story driven way, I mean Arkham excels at that, right? And I think some people who see that and then they see someone just being like, ignore the story, I just want to crush this can and my goal is to win, right? And it's kind of that old phrase of, you know, it's not the destination, it's all about the journey, or whatever the, you know. And you're basically taking the journey and being like, how can I make this journey as short as possible? And it's all about the destination and just throwing everything out the window. And yeah, I don't know, like having done this, Sean, and then also talking to Phileon, like I can't wait to take Dubs Ursula and play through Dunwich and see if I can do it like solo in under 90 minutes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Like I hadn't put a whole lot of thought toward this type of play in Arkham up to this point in the life of the game, just because there's been so much content and it's been so like regularly released. But now that we're kind of we're on this new release schedule where there's kind of big pauses between the release, and you know, then you know, I hate to think of it, but every game eventually has an end of its life. So when we eventually get there and there's no more official content coming out, like this community will endure. And this
Mhm.
sort of thing, if it's got enough organization and community effort behind it, could definitely extend the longevity of this game for people. Because that's ultimately like, I'm not super into speedrunning, but from what I understand of it, the community aspect of it is speedrunning. Like,
Mhm.
Yes.
no
yes.
one's doing this in a vacuum to just say like I did it. It's all about it's talking strategy, it's comparing scores, it's lining
There's a lot of,
categories of speedruns up. It's very, very community based.
There's a lot of collaboration. People always think of it as a
Mm.
competitive thing, but there's a lot of collaboration in speedrunning, and there's a lot of iteration where like you watch someone else's run and you're like, that's really good, but I think I can improve it even more.
Mhm.
And then you improve it, and then someone else sees how you improved it, and they take that one step further. And also, especially with like video games, when it comes to like finding glitches and stuff, someone
Mhm.
finds a glitch, and then all of a sudden, the entire speedrunning community is like all over it, finding
Right.
ways. But how can we manipulate this to our advantage? How can we get a couple extra seconds, even just a couple seconds, you know?
Mhm.
And that is very collaborative. So that I love that. I
And
think that's
then,
great.
like even a game that's been out and been speedrun umpteen times, someone figures out one new trick and blows the entire run
Oh
up.
yeah,
Mhm.
Like it's suddenly everything's up for grabs again.
yeah. All of a
Um,
sudden, you can walk through walls.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Arkham, and we were kind of talking about this a little bit, but with a video game when you're speedrunning, is particularly like I'm thinking like Dark Souls, like
Right.
Mirror's Edge was a game that I actually watched some speedruns for because that's just a really fun game. Um, the level that you're presented with is generally pretty static. Like you learn the tricks and you learn the run and you learn this enemy's here, the glitch is here. Like it's just like it's a very sequential thing. Arkham doesn't present exactly that level of that level of regularity. So it's a
Mhm.
little bit more loosey goosey in far as like what the deck will present you. So
Right.
there's what your deck will give you to utilize. There's what the encounter deck will throw at you. And then, of course, there's the chaos bag. So there's so many elements of unknown that would never even come
Mhm.
into play for a video game, and that make it
Yeah.
so much more kind of nebulous and less mechanical, which I think is cooler. Because then it's not so much about knowing the exact strategy to do
Right.
the thing. It's more like, okay, what is the optimum mix of probability I can give myself, given the probability of the mix of probability that I know I'm up against.
And it's
Mhm.
like it's a test of your intuition and wit
Yeah.
because you're trying to make decisions on the fly, and you don't have time to like sit down and think about it. You just gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So yeah, and actually there are some video games that are like that too. I'm thinking of like a speed run of Hades, for example.
Oh,
It's like
sure.
you never know what boons you're gonna get or the layout
Right.
of the room. You just kind of wing it.
Or like Returnal.
Another good example is if you're playing something like a Metroidvania game like Super Metroid or Castlevania with a randomizer on.
Oh yeah.
So that all of the items are in random
Mm.
places. You're like, I just picked up the Varia suit. All right, I guess I gotta go this way. You know what I mean? Like that shit is fun. And yeah, like totally different.
Finally, I'm still trying to figure out how to wall clip in this game. Let me know when you figure that one out.
Well, that's the thing though. Like
Open gate.
there are, yeah.
There
I
it
would
is.
argue that there are those moments where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I broke it. You know what I mean? I found a way to break this scenario. I with this card combination, and sometimes it's subtle where it's just like,
Sure.
oh, it's just like there's an enemy here that you need to get past, so I'll just take track shoes. Done. Okay. And other
Mhm.
times it's really complex, and it's like if you use this combo with this card and this card with this investigator, you can skip, this whatever.
Mhm.
And I think that's good. Like I don't I wouldn't want to patch that out, so to speak.
Mm.
Because to me, that is so much like speedrunning in a video game, where it's like, yeah, they found a way to clip through that wall. I mean, obviously, we don't want to make it too easy. Like, we don't want people to accidentally do that. But if it's like a weird, convoluted way that they managed to clip through the wall, don't patch it. Let them have their fun. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's kind of how I feel. That's um the thought process I have when it comes to like eroding things. It's like don't don't make it try to make it not broken upon release, but if someone finds a goofy way to like do something fun, like have fun. Like you're obviously not going to do it unless you want to do it.
And
Right.
That's what.
I always appreciate that in a GM where it's just like the players are here to feel awesome from time to time. Let them feel awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Uh,
Perfect example of that is with the game Celeste. Celeste had a very avid like speedrunning community, right? And they found all kinds of tricks that were never intended to be things that you could do. For example, like if you dash downwards at like the exact angle, you like bounce up off the ground and you go really far. And they called it a hyper dash or a hyper jump or something like that. And that became so popular, instead of patching it and removing that feature, when they made the DLC for Celeste, they actually made that like the
A
core
mechanic?
feature of the DLC, like a mechanic. Yeah. They
That's
actually
cool.
like integrated it into the game. It's so cool. So like that's the philosophy that I would take. And obviously it's different because it's a card game, but it's kind of not different.
Yeah, like this is one thing I was going to bring up and ask you, like as a designer, if I'm going to be a person who's speedrunning, like if I find a glitch, I mean, and you've already answered this. My question was going to be like, how would you feel about someone who is speedrunning who is exploiting that glitch? Like, I mean, we've
Right.
got a few different ways to really cut down. Like, open gate is a big one that I think on certain maps, right? Like, it just
Right.
it does things. Luke, I mean, well, Luke Gatebox, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So
I'm out of here.
yeah, I'm
I
out
mean,
of
that's
here.
just the card
Also, like,
working as intended, I suppose. But
I mean, A plus plus. If you find an exploit and you're speedrunning, and that's the whole point of your playthrough, I like use it. I think that's cool. That
mhm,
being said, with speedruns, very often when people are like competing and they're mapping out times and stuff, they have those categories. That's what if you're not familiar with speedrunning, that's what like the name of this stream is a play on, the glitchless any percent. Um, Speedrunners use
I
those,
didn't tell Scott
you
I
know,
did that.
like to like explain what parameters they've set for themselves.
mhm,
So if you're doing like no exploits, then maybe that means no obviously unintended,
mhm.
combos that like neuter a scenario. Um, you might also have something where it's like no resigning unless the objective is to resign.
That was like ultimately
Yeah,
when we had a lull in the conversation. That was going to be my next question. Is like
Yeah,
Arkham is
yeah,
very much designed as a game to allow you to fail forward if you want. So like if we're truly being munchkins in the idea of like I'm just going to get to the end as fast as possible, you could just take nosedives in so many scenarios and still make it through to the end. So like
and
there has to be some kind of like understanding of what it means to finish a scenario.
yeah, and it's I mean the same thing with Iron Man, right? Like if someone sat down to play Iron Man and they just got defeated in scenario 1, got defeated in scenario 2, resigned scenario 3, got defeated in scenario 4 and kept doing that, go to scenario 8 with like 4 trauma or
yeah,
6 trauma and no rewards and then beat it. They did it. They did Iron Man.
yeah,
Finishing
They
is
still
winning,
did it.
baby.
That's
yep,
fine. So it's all about the parameters that you set for yourself. It's you're not trying to beat, I mean you're sort of trying to beat other people, but it's more about challenging yourself and setting
mhm,
setting the parameters you want to set. If you want to play all 8 scenarios and you don't want to cheese it, then you do like a no resign, no defeat run, right?
80%
It's like
no
ultimatum
cheese.
of survival, right?
mhm.
Is that the one
Cheese
where it's
list.
like if you're eliminated you are killed? I think. Anyway,
Sounds like it. Yeah,
yeah, and you do like no exploits or whatever. Or if you just want to like have like the fastest time physically possible and also challenge yourself to find those exploits because that's fun. Finding
mhm.
exploits is fun inherently. Then you do that kind of a run and you say like, yeah, I'm gonna glitch the shit out of this.
Well,
It's fun to watch too when you load into a game and someone's like, or you load into you're watching GDQ or something, and someone's just inside a wall and they've just clipped from the beginning tutorial of the game to the final boss, and you're
Mhm.
like, what?
yeah.
Like that's fun to watch. I like that.
It's funny you mentioned the idea of like you making rules for how far you want to go into each scenario, like no resigning kind of thing like that. Because again, I was talking about Dunwich and maybe doing that. It turns out you only have to play 3 scenarios in Dunwich, right? You resign, play
Resign,
Essex,
you have to play
resign, where Doom awaits.
Although you could just stand in the final train car of Essex and just get sucked into the gate.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So,
yeah,
it's yeah. And so one thing I thought of was, for myself to like, again, right? It's going to be how do you want to challenge yourself? And to me, it's like I need to get at least 1 victory point in a scenario, and that's the minimum I have to play, right? So in Undimensioned Unseen, I can run to that 1 victory point location, clear it off, and then I can resign, right? It's kind of like what we did in TCU Iron Man in Clutches of Chaos, where we realized that, you know what? It's actually better for us to just doom out. Like, let those breaches explode. So let's just run over to that 1 location as a victory point, grab it, and then who cares?
And I think that's cool because now you're going into the finale with less experience points, and that's going to make that harder. Especially because like some of the best cards for speedrunning are going to be like 5 XP cards. You know. So yeah, I think that's totally valid and like really cool. And
I think it's okay.
I did just want to bring up, I forgot to mention it earlier, but like the concept of speedrunning in Arkham, and this is why I think it's particularly funny when if someone was like, oh, it wasn't intended to work like that or whatever. That was like cemented by a coworker, by Brad Andrews, during playtesting of the core set. He was like, oh wait, so you can just like resign in the Midnight Masks like turn 1? And I was like, yeah, technically you can resign in the Devourer below too. And I think at the time you didn't lose. If you did, it was just like a bad end.
Like just resign, R3 or something.
Yeah. And so Brad was like, oh, that's how I'm gonna play every time. And like, so we would sit down and we would talk about the Brad method, where you immediately set up the game and then you just like, I'm done. You just leave. And that led to the idea of like speedrunning, like among my playtesters, they were talking about it.
Yeah, because I know there's been a couple decks talking about speedrunning, and this is like years ago. So like it's odd that we haven't. I mean, besides Phylan, I haven't really seen many people like speedrunning based on time. But because it's again years ago, people made decks that you was it The Gathering, resign, Midnight Masks, resign, and then in the Devour below, so you're able to get Lita in the first scenario if you just resign first turn, because you choose to burn down your house, right? And then you resign Midnight Masks, and so you go into the final scenario with your level 0 deck with Lita in there, and you just have as many card draws as you can, and then just yeet a Chandler, right? And you just wait for Umordot to come down, and that's that.
That's cool.
That's been around, right? So
absolutely. And there's no I guess I just want to reiterate, like, there's no wrong way to play Arkham. There's just the way you want to play and the way other people want to play.
I find it interesting that we're comparing Arkham so much to video games, obviously, because speedrunning kind of started in video games. I assume that.
What else would it have started in?
I mean, there's bullet chess, which is like.
Well, yeah, I guess there's like speed chess and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right, like so that's been around for a long time. I'm trying to think of other stuff. I mean, speed cubing would have been. Yeah, speed dating. But Arkham now, like if you think of it from a video game point of view, and like I think any game, especially something like Arkham, like board games or card games that have tons of expansions, eventually they start to neither good or bad, but grown under their own weight, right? Like there's like you're constantly putting out new scenarios and new cards and new things to keep things exciting, and then someone, you put out a card and someone's like, oh hey, look, this like Luke in Essex County Express, if he's in his the Gatebox or Dreamlands or whatever, when the last car gets sucked out, it's like, well, where does he go? And it's like Arkham now has legit glitches, like in a video game where you can glitch into a wall and you have to like reset your Nintendo You know, like,
Yeah.
or
There was one in Before the Black Throne that was really funny, if I remember correctly.
there's one in Curtain Call where Roland can take the 99 horror and survive,
Survive. I saw
right?
that.
And then there's just
And
you're
then
like,
the game didn't end, and there's no, so you're just like,
yeah,
what do
right?
I do?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
And there was one game I played of, God, was it with Luke and Patrice and Open Gate? Or maybe it was my Survivor run through. Anyways, we played Carnival, and because of Open Gate and how we just happened to get them out really quick because I was playing Patrice, and then I had them in my Patrice deck, and it was like, sweet, turn 1, Open Gate, turn 2, Open Gate, turn 3, Open Gate. Excuse me. We had returned all the, I forget what they're called, but the good people. Before, there's something like Shanathqua didn't show up, and she just wasn't there when the game expected her to be there,
Right.
but we had done it so quickly, and we're like, how does it? And so it's something like we got into the raft and she just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Or we got into the boat and it's like, she attacks you. We're like, well, she's not in play. So, yeah. But I mean, that happens, right? Like as the game grows and cards grow, and I don't think that's a negative. It just is, right?
Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
That's the nature of any game. I mean, Lord of the Rings, the card game, had the same same issue. And to me, it's not even a bug so much as a feature, because like, I mean, it's kind of a cheesy answer, because it is kind of a bug, but it's also like finding those things can be fun if you're going into it with a mindset of like, I'm going to craft the best deck for Carnival of Horrors physically possible. And you're scouring through your collection for the best cards and the best investigator, and you're putting together the ultimate Carnival of Horrors like deck. That is fun inherently.
Yes.
I mean, not for everyone, but that is a mode of play, and the game encourages you to do that by having different scenarios challenge you in different ways when it comes to like what kinds of things you need to do to survive or to win, you know? And that's like a perfect example of that.
Well, I think a lot of people do that too every year with Iron Man, where it's like,
oh yeah,
okay, what decks am I bringing to deal with this entire campaign?
Yeah.
Right? And in the Carcosa one, like Ian had his spreadsheets for adaptable, because every scenario he could switch out 4 level 0 cards in Safina. And he's like, okay, what are my silver bullets? Every single scenario, right? Like, what are the 4 cards that are those cards that I need to have, right? It's like going into this last scenario, where the gods dwell. I upgraded and put in 2. I'm pretty sure I put in 2 shortcuts. Might have been 1. Anyways, upgraded shortcuts, 2 of them. Yep. Knowing that in the final area, like having one in the middle is really, really good, right?
Yeah.
Same thing in TFA. In the final scenario, like my last upgrade was upgrading my shortcut 0 to shortcut level 2, because I'm like, once we get those 2 hub locations, right? Like that kind of card is insanely powerful.
Or like wipe in Undimensioned Unseen.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, I'm just gonna mind wipe them and then shoot them once.
Yeah, and mind wipe is not a card that a lot of people play, I don't think.
Right.
But it is that silver bullet that in very specific scenarios, it is like 10 out of 10 put in your deck. And finding those things, I love. I absolutely love.
Yeah, it's always fun to go back to a card that you like panned like 2 years ago, and you're like, oh my god, it's actually perfect in this scenario.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it when old bad cards get new life. That is one of my favorite things.
Barricade and Luke, right?
Yes, Barricade and Luke. I remember when The Last King came out, and everyone was like, Flying Clothes.
Yeah.
It was good in Curtain Call too. So we're just like, Carcosa makes Fine Clothes great.
And I think I even cheekily referenced like in the flavor text that like you should wear your best. Like the invitation to the dinner party is like,
wear your Sunday best and come out. The residents of constant domain.
Mhm. One thing I noticed too, and I think we kind of touched on this too, is um, whenever some there are some views, and this isn't just Arkham. Like I just think in general, when some people look at speed running or speed gaming things, um, they look at it as, oh, you're just doing it the easy way because you're glitching or you're doing these things, and like
No,
that boggles my mind. That it's like,
no,
first of all, it's not easy because
it's
if it
not
was,
easy.
everyone would be doing it. Like
Right.
these people spend hundreds, if not thousands, of hours practicing, and I relate it now because I'm playing a bunch of chess. I relate it to speed chess. And I'm terrible at speed chess because I'm okay at chess. And watching these people who are like grandmasters playing speed chess, it boggles my mind how they can play it because they just know where pieces need to go. They've
Yeah.
played so much chess, they've mastered chess that they can finally play it at, you have 30 seconds for your entire game of
Ugh.
chess. Right? Like you have 30 seconds, I have 30 seconds. And then there's Hyper Bullet, which is 15 seconds each. And I'm just like, I can't think of a single move in 15 seconds, let
Yeah,
alone the game.
I played a game of speed chess with Nate, Danny, and who was it? I don't remember who the fourth person was. I feel bad now. I think it might have been Michael Boggs. Coworkers, right?
Mm.
So I was on a team with Nate French. He is like very good at chess. Danny is
Mhm.
very good at chess. I'm terrible at chess, okay?
Mhm.
Really bad at chess. And we're doing speed chess. And it's not 30 seconds. It's like
Yeah.
5 minutes or something.
Yeah.
But it's still like but we're doing it on a team. So it would be like, Nate goes, someone on their team goes, I go, the other person on their team goes, then Nate and then
Okay.
but you can't talk strategy.
Yeah. Well, you don't have
So
time either, really.
right, and you don't have time. So I just remember having this moment where I'm losing time. I'm like, oh god, all right. Then I move a piece and Nate just goes. Because I just ruined the game for him.
You hug the queen. Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's what you get for picking me.
I would have walked away before that game even started. Like, sorry,
Yeah,
Nate, I will do
exactly.
nothing but
Yeah.
disappoint you. We should just both.
So side tangent into chess because you guys side tangent into a bunch
Oh,
of video
God.
games that I don't care about. There's a really fun variant where you have someone who's like, so whoever's better at chess is the brain, and then whoever is less as good at chess is the hand, and it's a 2 versus 2. So the better person, when it's your move, so let's say MJ, it's you and me playing, I would say pawn. You have to move a pawn, any pawn. Or if I say knight, you have to move a knight. So I can give you hints on like, hey, what piece should you move?
Oh.
But you have to like go like, okay, he said knight. There's got to be
Right.
something with the knight, right? So I'm like hoping you find the move.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really Oh yeah, yeah. Entropy Freak mentioned it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really it's really fun to watch because sometimes it's just like someone's like pawn, and the person moves a pawn next to her, pawn, and just like trying to get them to move this like.
Trying to get you to move the specific pawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Push this pawn up.
Meanwhile, the other person's like, oh, he's just trying to get me to get this one pawn across the board. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny.
That one's a really fun variant to play. But
Yeah.
Mhm.
There was man, I lost my other point. I had another point I was going to mention, but now I lost it.
Uh-oh.
I mean, to the hypothetical naysayer who is saying like, oh, it's speedrunning is just easier or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I feel like you're playing the less fun version of the game as a test of skill and mastery. So like that would be the reason not to do it every time. Because
Right.
sometimes you just want to experience the story.
Mhm.
And sometimes you want to do really well. Like
Yeah.
speedrunners get it done fast. They don't do it well.
Yeah.
They don't kill every enemy. They don't get every victory point. They don't discover every clue.
And you can crash and burn real hard too.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like how would that happen?
I don't know. But I mean, like, I've played a number of games solo where, you draw, like, I mean, if you're playing someone who, okay, so obviously I play Ursula a bunch when I'm playing solo. I took a break, but I'm back. But the
I
whole
can quit
key of it
whenever I want.
is, yeah, that I try to beat the scenario as quickly as possible, so I get the least amount of encounter draws, so I
Mm.
see the least amount of enemies, right?
Right.
And I'm hoping that I only see like 1 or 2 enemies, and I can evade what I need to evade, and I'm so fast that I just like evade and I'm gone, and that enemy is not going to see me again, and that's how I deal with them.
Right.
But there's games where it's like, okay, so every single encounter phase I draw is an enemy 4 in a
Yeah.
row, and it's like, well, there goes my speed run or
Yeah.
whatever I'm doing. It's
Scrap
like,
the run right there.
there it is, right? And that's the video
Yeah.
gamer who misses the glitch and doesn't
Yep. And then they
do
have
it
to go
right.
all the way back.
I was gonna say about glitching and competitiveness. Back when I played Halo 2 competitively, there was a glitch in that was like supported in esports. Like it was the BXR glitch. Basically, in Halo 2, if you meleeed someone and then shot them, got a headshot with the battle rifle, the melee would bring down their shields enough that the battle rifle, a shot to the head, was an instant kill.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But people realize that if you the length of the animation of the melee, you could interrupt it by hitting X, which was reload. But then
Right.
if you pulled your trigger early enough after starting to reload, you could shoot. So it
Yeah.
was faster to melee, cancel the animation with X to start to reload, and then pull your trigger, than just melee and then wait for it to be done and shoot.
Yeah. There's
But
a
if you
lot of that stuff in Destiny too,
yeah,
which is one of my favorite games ever.
yeah. And so if you want to be a competitive Halo 2 player, you needed to learn and practice and master BXRing, because that's what the game was about, was BXR. Who could
Yeah.
BXR each other? I mean, there was other things too, but like 60% of kills were probably BXRs in tournament play.
In Destiny, and I think they did actually patch this, and it caused a huge ruckus because everyone was like, "No, just let me play the way I want to play." There was a method where if you have a shotgun and you're like, "Pow, reload, pow, pow," it's faster to shoot, start to sprint, and then shoot again. And if you do it really fast, it looks like you just go pow, 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 like you have a shotgun machine gun.
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't really do much in PvP because one hit with a shotgun will pretty much kill anyone anyway. But in PvE, you could, if everyone has a shotgun, you just surround a boss and you just all go.
Right. Yeah.
That boss just melts and
Yeah.
ceases to exist. And they patched it. And that's a perfect instance of me being like, I don't think you needed to patch that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, if
Especially-
you wanted to get the full experience of the boss, you could just not do that.
Yeah.
And if you want to speedrun it, then you're good.
I could see them patching it in multiplayer and then leaving it for, you know, the campaign cooperative stuff, because if you want to play that way, that's what you can do. Like if you want to play you know, Rougarou with open gate and put one at each end and like never have to go through
with Calvin, period.
Yeah. Just like that's fine. That's your
Calvin
option,
werewolf.
right?
Yeah.
So I fully agree with everything you both just said.
Cool,
But
we're done then.
But if I remember talking about this sort of thing at around the time that like Milan was really popular and the taboo list had yet to come out, and like people were talking about various cards being too powerful or broken or whatever parlance they chose to use, there are just some gamers who cannot help themselves. They cannot. If they know a thing is the most powerful,
if they know a thing is better,
use
they
it.
have to use it.
They must use it. And I don't understand that, especially like when they're doing it to their own detriment. They're the ones on the board going like, this card is broken, it makes the game trivial, and and they cannot stop using it. And I cannot understand those gamers. Do you guys have any insight into like I don't know, MJ, you probably interact with a variety of gamers in your correspondence.
I won't name names, but I even know people in the office who are like that. Who it's like, if there's a card that is just too good, they will use it to the exclusion of their own fun, and their own enjoyment of the game. And on the one hand, I get it, right? Because like I've done that before with video games. Like I've done that before where it's like, man, whenever I'm playing Hades, right? I love the gun. I love the gun.
You never make the gun work for me.
See, for me, the gun is like the only way I can consistently get to the end. Every time I pick the gun, I do super well. Every time I pick like the sword, I do terribly.
Interesting.
So to a certain extent, it's like I want to pick the sword because I'm kind of sick of the gun. You know what I mean? I've only ever used the
You've done
dumb
the gun.
gun. I want to use the sword. But every time I pick the sword, I lose, so I just keep picking the gun, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I have to get better at the sword to get good with the sword. You know what I mean? Like I gotta pick it at some point. So it's a crutch, is what it is. At least that's my feeling. But you know, everyone finds their own enjoyment in different ways. But I mean, if you're not having
Some
fun,
people never
change it
enjoy
up.
anything, MJ. Some people never enjoy anything.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, Returnal is another game where I did the same thing. I always pick the carbine every time. If the carbine's available, I pick the carbine.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's good.
it's like it was the first one I got. Is it scripted that this is the first one you get?
You always get the carbine first,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very solid. Especially if you get leech rounds, like
Anyway. Or Rising Pitch, that's the upgrade I always go for. So good. So yeah, I would just encourage people to use the taboo list that's what it's there for. If you're finding it stale because you keep using the same combos, if every deck you make is Dr. Milan higher education, that's the whole point of the taboo list, is to get people trying new things and finding enjoyment that they didn't know was there.
Kick the crush out from Tiny Tim.
Yeah. Sometimes I gotta slap the Guardian cards out of Jeremy's hand and like make him play a rogue.
Yeah, that seems
okay.
Right. I guess we'll play a rogue.
Then he proceeds to break something. Right.
Right. Then he goes infinite again.
So that's why Double or Nothing got banned.
Yeah.
I saw people do stupid shit with that card.
I
get it. I was a person who did stupid shit with that card. What do we premonition a Double or Nothing Storm of Spirits from Safina to just like wipe out 6 enemies from the castle?
Oh,
in
yeah.
Carcosa.
Am I audible? Okay, good. I lost my microphone. Yeah, but that's the magic of the taboo list, is if you want to do that, you can still do that. Double or Nothing still exists as a card, and it still says what it does. And you can still do, like, I want to try to do 40 damage in one hit with Double or Nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can still do that, and that's cool.
With the Games Center stepping up and kind of doing a bunch of the like print on demand stuff with Parallel Investigators, and then they put out the novella pack. I'm like, man, they are doing it. Like, the only thing left on that list is to put out like a taboo pack, and to put out a taboo pack for player cards for each taboo list, potentially. Like, we're gonna get super granular with it. And I really, really just want a copy of Double or Nothing that just says forbidden on it.
Says you can't use it.
I will slab that card and get it graded. Like, just.
I mean, so the tricky part with that is I don't know if they would want to commit to a product like an MSRP that they would have to update every 6 months, every 12 months. That's always been the reason why I've never done it. I've never pitched it as a product, because it's like we'd have to redo it every year, and then people are going to really buy. And like, I'm sure some people will. Some people in chat are probably like, yeah, I would buy it every time. But like the number of people, the attach rate, as we call it, the number of people who would buy it, it's exceedingly slim. If the Game Center wants to do it, though, that's a different story, because they can accept that much smaller attach rate.
They can do like crazy smaller runs than
way
the main
smaller.
production.
You're not distributing it. There's no distribution. They're just it's in the store. But that would be a decision that they would have to make. I'm actually like super not involved in that. To the extent that I did not know that they were doing the novellas until about 2 months ago. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool that they made that available.
Yeah.
And they have...
they're now like a separate entity from us.
Yeah.
So they just do their own thing.
And they have a they have like a print on demand machine, right? Like they have a.
But
So like,
it's much more advanced than the print on demand machines we used to have, like back in like the
okay.
Carnival of Horrors Rougarou days. It's almost indistinguishable in color quality and in cut. The thickness is maybe slightly different. I actually don't know. But they're way closer than they used to be. It used to be you'd feel it and it's like a different quality altogether. Like if you ran your hand over the card, it wouldn't feel like glossy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It felt
Totally
very
different.
matte.
Yes. But now it's like a lot more closer to like actual cardstock.
So I'm wondering, like, with the idea of a taboo pack, is that something where you call them up and they, once a week they run a print run of however many people ordered one or something? You know what I mean? Like, or is it as easy as them just hitting a button like, "Hi, I'd like to get a taboo pack." Okay, give us 15 minutes and come back.
No,
And like,
it wouldn't be. It's not quite that on demand.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
From what I understand, they do runs and then, but like they're all
Yes.
packaged, right?
Yeah.
So like they do the runs of the printing and then they package the things too. So there's kind of a process to it.
Yeah, the two differences between the print on demand and like our normal factory is the factory is on site, so there's no shipping,
Right.
And the queue is much shorter, right? But there is still a queue. Like they have projects booked probably for like 2 weeks in advance of like, this is what we're printing today. They want it in 3 weeks or whatever. You know what I mean? And the runs are much smaller. It'll be like, oh, we're gonna do a run of 200 of this. 200 of that, 200 of something for like a factory that we have in China would be absurd. We would never do that.
Yeah.
If something ever got to the point where it was even like 2,000, we'd be like, do we really want to do this if it's only going to be 2,000? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the nice thing about the Game Center is that they can print like, we can print like 100 of these. That's fine. If we sell all 100, that's great. That's money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if we tried to do 100 Mythos packs, we wouldn't actually make any money on it. None. We'd lose money.
The fixed cost for the higher production is a lot higher, so you want to spread that fixed cost. Sorry, my business major is coming out.
Yeah. It would cost more than that just to ship it back over, like, and distribute it. Yeah. So.
Well, I hope they continue to do cool stuff like that because it's cool to actually have a place where you can trade money for goods and services. Because some of those things, it's just like I would give. So many people are having a hard time finding those things, and it's like I would give money if I could just find it.
And part of the issue too is because it's also one of the reasons why we moved to this new release model in the first place is store space. Sure. Retailers were having problems storing the game, right? If you were a retailer and you wanted to hold every Arkham product that existed, it would take like 2 whole shelves, and you're just not gonna even bother, right? But with the Game Center, A, it's enormous, and B, that's their decision. Like they can just do it if they feel they have the space, as opposed to relying on, if Asmodee is going to print something, it's going to go to every store, So,
pretty sweet.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, we've managed to talk for an additional hour, so that's fun.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on
even about speedrunning?
I mean, any final thoughts on speedrunning before we kind of mosey on?
I would love it if the people who wanted to explore speedrunning came up with the framework and the community for it, the way that speedrunners in like video games have it, with like, here's the categories for this campaign, and here's the times that people have listed and stuff.
We need mutually agreed upon parameters, and that's the jumping off point.
But even without that, I do want to make it known though that even without that, speedrunning can be like a really cool, fun test of your own mastery. You can set your own parameters, whatever they may be, and just go ham and see how you do, and then try to improve it. It's like, I'm trying to think of a good example of a sport that you play against yourself. I guess golf.
Croquet.
Yeah.
Croquet. Except I hate golf, so that's a bad example. It's like golf, but it's good.
It's like golf, but not terrible.
There we go. That's the new Arkham Horror, the card game. It's like golf, but it's good. Right now, the marketing team is like,
yeah.
I'd buy
Suddenly,
that game.
Suddenly, Fine Clothes is actually a really good card.
oh god, we need a golf clothes card. You get -2 to parlay tests.
Oh god.
Just because everyone hates golfers.
Because you look like a golfer.
I mean, yeah, there's that too. Right on.
But extra resources. Yes.
But no time, no actions, one fewer action per turn because you're takes so much time. All right, well, that was fun, and we're definitely going to do something like this again. Anyone who bothers to set up any speedrunning stuff, feel free to keep us apprised of it, and we'll blast it to the extent we can. Like I said, this is something that I did not know I'd have an interest in, but now that we've taken a swing at it, this was pretty fun, and I'd be very interested to see like where we can go with this sort of thing. So we will definitely be doing something like this again.
It's funny you say that because you basically host a speedrunning event every year.
I mean,
yeah, it feels different.
Speedrun.
It
is.
It is.
It's a speedrun marathon, which feels a little bit different than like the 4 scenario, medium sprint.
But if you've ever seen someone speedrun a game that doesn't have glitches, like, or that has like lots of collectibles and you have to collect everything and it takes like 40 hours.
Yeah.
It's like that.
That's
it's like
true.
Donkey Kong. Which one is it? Donkey Kong Country.
Probably.
Yeah, Donkey Kong 64. Yes, that's like the famous one. Watch H Bomber Guy's video about speedrunning Donkey Kong 64
and learn lots of useful and interesting stuff about trans people. That was my biggest takeaway from that stream was like, I have learned a lot.
And then AOC showed up and said trans rights, and I was like,
pretty great. It was pretty great.
It was great.
But yes, highly recommend. Go to H Bomber Guy. It's out on his YouTube's.
Please do.
Good time.
One thing I was thinking of too, Sean, is a speedrunning thing where one of us plays, like, or us two control one deck, you know, or multiple people. So like maybe not death by committee, but like double checking each other's math. You're like, okay, are we doing this? Yeah, and we're committing this. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like.
One other way that you could potentially make it faster is if you had someone controlling the Mythos.
Oh,
like not decisions or anything. Not like an intelligent player like the Keeper's Nightmare, but like just moving the cards around and doing that for you, so it's like semi-automated. Just takes the time off. Yeah.
So like enemy phase, they like you go to upkeep and they're checking for hunters and they're adding the doom and they're dealing you your encounter card.
So like you basically draw your card and gain a resource, and then you're ready to start playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The doom's been added and they've already drawn your encounter card for you. Yeah. And you're just like, okay, that's what I'm getting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, or someone mentions a well done script. Absolutely. That's valid.
I like having friends, but you know, code is cool too.
Well, I think PTS and physical space are probably two different categories, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, even tonight, there was a couple times where I'm like, man, this would be so much easier with physical cards.
Yeah.
You know, like there's just there's a few times where, and I've noticed this too, other times playing where I'm like, this is so much easier physical. And then there's other times where it's like, oh, set up a scenario, click,
click,
did it. Right? Like there's the time you save. But yeah.
Meat space speed running. That's I'll accept the Netrunner reference there.
Yeah. Meat space, net space.
Running. Meat speed running.
Oh.
I was gonna say I said meat running, and then I was gonna say so then I guess the opposite would be net running, and then I was like, damn it.
You lost that game.
Tika's saying there's already a project that automates the Mythos phase.
Of course
there is. Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
She probably made it because she's amazing.
There's also people who voice act all of the scenarios.
They do, yeah. For better or for worse.
When are you gonna get on Edge of the Earth?
We're through part 1 of it, so we got through Forbidden Peaks.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah,
I feel like
and
the
I
intro.
have my notes right here because I was going through, because Nick actually did the majority of part 1, and then Ian's kind of in the middle, and then I'm going to do the majority of part 2. But Nick did a really good job. He actually he affected a different voice for each partner, which,
That's cool.
you know, we talked about doing that, but no one thought that we were going to get that ambitious. So I editing Nick's stuff, I wrote down notes for what he did for each partner.
Gotcha.
You know, like he did, Dr. Malasina, which my notes are soft, quick, and terse.
Nice. I like that.
So we're gonna get on that the rest of this weekend and hopefully have that pushed
up.
up by mid next week.
Nice.
Fun trivia fact too that MJ I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
That the dissonant voices for this campaign is going to be longer than the audiobook of Mountains of Madness.
Yeah, you'll be happy to know, there's a little bit of space in between entries just because we have to leave some blank space, but the up through Forbidden Peaks is a 2-hour and 11-minute video.
Nice.
I don't know what that does for you, but
I'm just dreaming ahead. I'm just thinking about the future. I'm just thinking about future Sean.
MJ, what are you doing? MJ, stop.
No, it's fine. I really like Dissonant Voices. Fun project. If we didn't have so much real life to tend to, I would have a grand old time with it. As it is, it's still quite fun.
My favorite Easter egg is in TCU how all 4 of us pronounced meager different. Joseph Meyer.
Meyer.
Meyer, Miger.
I think
Meager.
I'm pretty sure I did Major.
Yeah, all 4, and it wasn't planned. We all just read it differently and thought we were correct. Yeah,
that's okay.
It was real
that's
bad.
Okay.
Yeah, just like Gene, right?
Right, Gene.
Yeah.
I'm like, as a beloved character who is named after 2 of my favorite literary characters of all time, when you said Gene, I went, oh!
Died a little bit.
Just a little bit, but it's fine.
What's her last name? At least I said that the way the French.
I'm not gonna be able to pronounce it perfectly, but it's like Beauregard.
Oh yeah, Beauregard.
But it's like Beauregard. Yeah, it's
Beauregard.
Like it's but the person who the man whose last name she is named for is English.
Oh, then he'd be Beauregard.
It's like next door to
Beauregard.
France, so.
But maybe
or Beauregard.
I don't know.
There's some cross pollination. Wasn't Janae referenced in a prior campaign at some point?
Multiple times, actually.
Okay.
Janae is in the epilogue to the Dunwich Legacy. In one of the 2 epilogues, she's there researching the stuff that's going on, and she's also on the card Fieldwork. That is her.
Oh,
it's her in the artwork, and it's her in the flavor text. The flavor text is if this didn't get Janae into the Explorers Club, she never would, or something like that.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's great because she combos with Fieldwork.
Yeah. And they're both bomb-ass cards, so...
Hell yeah.
I love canon like that. When we finally got Nkosi Mabati, I was like, yes,
it's
him! It's the dude from it's the dude from Defiance!
Is that the dude from Defiance? And then it totally is just the dude from Defiance. Yeah.
Pretty great.
Great. It would be like if Quick Draw Holster came out first and then Delilah came out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. She's in one more card too, right?
Huh? No, it's just
those 2?
Just those 2.
She's the best.
Fantastic. Well, I need to sleep at some point.
What?
So I'm gonna start a raid.
Ooh.
So
I thought you said a rave.
No, well that too. That's just for me. But the raid is going to the third best speed chess player in the world who's streaming right now.
Is ground
speed chess. There you go. He's speed running chess.
They're gonna be like, what the?
Yeah.
These people.
So stick around. You get channel points for it, which you can use the next time we stream because we'll actually have all the rewards back. But
Yes.
we cut them out for the speed running because they just get in the way.
Next
But
time we play for funsies.
not that it would have helped us or hindered us either way. So
Well, thank you, MJ, for being here and for chatting with us. Always a pleasure. And,
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, and thanks to everyone who saw us through the speed run. I guess we're just gonna have to take another run at it. Here we go. Boot it up.
guess we'll have to. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Have fun watching chess. I'll be there for a couple seconds too.